cloud, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? For the desert dry, for the raising of the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the desert stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet. Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? And does it happen to that to the maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly?
Big man, there goes back the knife.
It will be like the dream.
Where's that moon?
That evil bird, you will.
Quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer to bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrap them in blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? For the desert dry, for the raising of the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the desert stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet. Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What doesn't happen to that to the maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? It will be detained. It will be like the dream deferred. You will look toward the lessening for the sweetening of your spirit and soul, for the spirituality to be a poem, for this to be the morning, and it would be for the explosion of your harm, for the care and tenderness for your sweet sincerity. Your compassion will only meet for it to be the destination of whatever was poems and left, for the renaissance will not be complete without the weary blue. But it was not just a primary color, for just a part of you, for the inside the river that runs, that flows. It's your inner core. It's your inner meaning. It's the inner differentiations of the same thing that is synonymous with this. Cannot be no difference in the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream, for this is to let your sequences fly for the distance to be parallel with one as such. For we are like no different mirrors, reflections, have the same dreams, lost in the same algorithm. Who's to step away from this world to get a better perspective? So tired of waiting for the becoming the good, for the beauty in this kind. I want to sit with me in my love, understanding of your essence is more for let the dump for the deck, or divine splendors in the board torn out for the places with no carpet on the floor, for the bare for all time, for the being climbed upon, for the turning corner, for sometimes going for the dark where there can be no light. Turn back. You set down those steps for the finding of the kind of hurt. You fall down for the still going, for the honey. I can still to see the climate, for there been no crystal stair. I won't let that back in, for it has tax in it. I don't want to be the retreating, for the turning of corners. I want to be not for the morning, but for the learning. Light breather into the music and the blood, for the singing, for the drifting of the dark times, for the eyes that begin to see. I meet the shadow from the deepening of the shade, for the hearing of the echo of the wood. The Lord of nature leaping to a tree, for the live between the branches and the reeds and the hills, for the serpents and the dance, for the madness between the nobility of the soul, for the odds of the circumstance. I know the purity, pure despair, for the shadows pinned against the sweating wall, for the place along the rocks is a cave, for the winding path, the edge is what I have for the step. Stem for the correspondence, for the legs, it might be you flowing with the bird, for the ragged moon. Ragged with the bird, the broad line for the broader. Midnight come again, for the night goes far out beyond the depth of the light of the scene, for the meaning, the tearless life of the nature. Shapeless, maybe shapes and blades again, natural light for the dark, my light, darker my desire, my soul, my light for the heaving of the summer fly, for the buzzing of the still, which is I, for the fallen man to climb out of the fear. The entered one's is self, for the God mind. One is one for the free, for the tearing of the wind. This will be the time for that light bearer, the breather, that spirit to move in. I sit next to you like taking a sip of the eternity of the sun, for the stars of the sky never taste that good. But I reckon this will be my own confession. As dark as I am, I will always find enough light to adore my pieces with all my pieces in your love. Quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer that bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrap in the blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? For the does it dry for the raisin in the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet. Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load and doesn't explode. What does it happen to that dream? Maybe it doesn't find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly. It will be the king. It will be like the dream deferred.
Get emotional each time they say your name.
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. Bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer to bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrap you in the clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? Does it dry for the raisin in the sun, for the freshening of the sore, for like the sun, for does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over the syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, it doesn't explode. What does it happen to that dream? Maybe it doesn't find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly. It would be detained.
Just to be
Like the dream deferred. Renaissance would not be complete without the weary blue. But it was not just a primary color, but just a part of you, but the inside the river that runs, that flows. It's your inner core. It's your inner being. It's the inner differentiations of the same thing that is synonymous with this. Cannot be no difference in the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream for this.
I'm calling for the chain. Toes cross the floor, you play. Good at holding back and eating away your leg.
Not quite sure, but I
I'm
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and you bring me to the heart melodies, and I may wrap in the blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? Does it dry for the raisin of the sun, for the freshening of the sore, for like the run, for does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What does it happen to that to them? Maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? Be detained. splendors in the board torn up, for the places with no carpet on the floor, for the bare for all time, for the being climbed upon, for the turning corners and sometimes going for the dark where there can be no light. Turn back. You set down those steps for the finding that kind of hurt. You fall now for the still going, for the honey. I can still see the climbing, for the been no crystal stair. I won't let that back in, for it has tax in it. I don't want to be the retreating, for the turning of corners. I want to be not for the morning, but for the learning. We will rest in the sunshine, away for the melanin to be boundless and free. Like a light breather into the music in the blood, for the singing,
So I
for the
slave away.
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer to bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrapped in the blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? For the does it derive for the raising of the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What does it happen to that to the maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? It will be detained. It will be like the dream, deferred. You will look toward the lessening for the sweetening of your spirit and soul, for the spirituality will too be a poem. For this will be the morning, and it will be for the explosion of your heart, for the care and tenderness of your sweet sincerity. Your compassion will only meet for the destination, whatever is going to left, for the renaissance will not the weary blue. But it was not just the primary color, but just a part of you, but inside the river that runs, that flows. It's your inner core. It's your inner meaning. It's the inner differentiations, and the same thing that is synonymous with this cannot be no difference in the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream. For this is to let your sequences fly, for the distance to be parallel with one as such. For we are like no different. Mirrors, reflections, have the same dreams, lost in the same algorithm. Who's a step away from this world to get a better perspective? So tired of waiting for the becoming the good, for the beauty in its kind. I want to sit with me in my love, understanding of your essence is more for the let the stomach of the deck, or the find the splinters in the board torn up, for the places with no carpet on the floor, for the bare for all time, for the being climbed upon, for the turning corners, and sometimes going for the dark where there can be no light. Turn back. You set down those steps for the finding of the kind of hurt. You fall down for the still going, for the honey. I can still see the climbing for the middle crystal stair. I won't let that back in, for it has tax in it. I don't want to be the retreating, for the turning of corners. I want to be not for the morning, but for the learning. Rest in the sunshine, wait for the melody to be boundless and free. Like a light breathing into the music in the blood, for the singing, for the drifting of a tune or a melody, for the dark tones, for the dark times, for the eyes that begin to see, for I meet the shadow.
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams and the dream of the moon.
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and the dream you bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrap in the blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? For the does it derive for the raising of the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What does it happen to that dream? Maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? It will be detained. It will be like the dream deferred. You will look toward the lessening for the sweetening of your spirit and soul, for the spirituality will too be a poem. For this will be the morning, and it will be for the explosion of your heart, for the care and tenderness of your sweet sincerity. Your compassion will only be for it to be the destination, wherever it was going to left, for the renaissance will closer. It's your inner core. It's your inner meaning. It's the inner differentiations and the same thing that is synonymous with this cannot be no difference in the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream for this is to let your sequences fly from the distance and be parallel one as such. For we are like no different. Mirrors, reflections. Have the same dream. Lost in the same algorithm. Just step away from this world to get a better perspective. Sometimes we live in this kind of set, love, understanding of your essence is more collective, dumb, good, the dash, the mind, slenders, and the board torn left, the places with no carpet on the floor for the bear for all time, for the bee climbing on, turn corner, but sometimes morning for the dark wood, no light, turn back, you set down the steps with the finding of the kind of hurt, you fall down for the still going, for the unhealthy still to see the kind of with no crystal stare. I won't let that back in, it has tax in it. In the sunshine, away for the melody to be boundless and free, like a light breather into the music and the blood, for the singing, for the drifting of the tune or melody, for the dark tones, for the dark times, for the eyes that began to see, for the shadow of the being and the soul of the air, the echo of the wood. Lord of nature leading to a tree for the living, the wrenches, the roots, and the hills, the serpents, and the dams, and the mass, and the ability of the soul, for the odds of the circumstance. I know the period, fear, despair, for the shadows beginning against the sweating wall, for the place along the boxes, the cave, for the winding path, the edge is what I have for the step, stem for the correspondence, for the lesson might be flowing with the bird, for the tragic moon, ragged with the broad line, for the broader midnight come again, for the man goes far out beyond the death of the life of the scene, for the heat, the tearless night, for the nature, shapeless, maybe shapes and blazing in natural light, for the dark my light, darker my sight, my soul, my light, the sun of life, the buzzing and the still, which is high, for the falling and the kind of good, the nature of itself, for the God mind, it's one and free for the team. There's many times for that light there, that spirit to move in.
Not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You'll bring me to all your dreams, and the dream to bring me for the art melodies, and I'll be wrapped in the blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred for the does it derive for the raising of the sun, for the freshening of the sore, for like the run, does it stink for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, it doesn't explode. But does it happen to that dream? Maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? Like the dream, deferred. Difference of the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream, for this is to let your sequences fly, for the distance to be parallel with one as such. For weird light, no different. Mirrors, reflections, have the same dream, also the same algorithm. Step away from this world to get a better perspective. So I'm tired of waiting for the becoming the good, for the beauty in this kind. I for a hashtag sin. I don't want to be the retreating, but turning the corners. Not for the morning, but for the night. We'll rest in the sunshine, waiting for the melanin to be boundless and free. Like a light breather into the music in the blood, for the singing, for the drifting in the tune of our melody. For the dark times, for the eyes that begin to see, for my meet the shadow, for the beginning of the shape, for the hearing of the echo. The Lord of nature moving to a tree, for the river between the branches, and the beasts and the hills, and the serpents and the dam, for the madness in between the worthy of the soul, for the odds of the circumstance. I know the purity, the pure despair, for the shadows pinned against the sweating wall, for the place along the rocks is a cave, for the winding path, the edge is what I have for the stem for the correspondence, for the legs that might be flowing with the bird, for the ragged moon, ragged with the broken broad line, for the broader midnight come again, for the night goes far out beyond the depth of the light we see, for the tearless night, for the shapes and blades of your natural light, for the dark my light, darker my desire, my soul, my life, the sun of fire, the buzzing of the still, which is high, for the fallen men to climb out of the field. The angel one himself, the God mind, one is one, for the free, for the tearing of the way. Mind for that light bear, that spirit to move in. I sit next to you like baby, sit with the eternity and the sun and the stars and the sky, never taste that. I erect it. This would be my own profession, so dark as I am, I will always find enough light to endure. My pieces with all my pieces and yours, love with yours. War with 98 experience appreciate you. I sail to the seas, the ocean, the wonderful force, the scars around the damn quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You'll bring me to all your dreams, and the dream will bring me to the heart melodies, and I'll be wrapped in blue clouds, waiting for the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred? Does it derive in the raising of the sun, for the freshening of the sword, for like the run, for the dust, the stink, for the rock, for the crust of the sugar over a surface? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What does it happen to that to do? Maybe it doesn't find itself for the holding fast, for the cannot fly. It would be detained. It would be like the dream deferred. You will look toward the lessening for the sweetening of the your spirit and soul, for the spirituality to be a poem. For this would be the morning, and it would be for the explosion of your heart, the care and tenderness of your sweet sincerity. Your compassion will only meet for it, the true destination, whatever was poems and left, for the renaissance will not be complete, not the weary blue. For it was not just the primary color, but just a part of you, but the inside the river that runs, that flows. It's your inner core. It's your inner meaning. It's the inner differentiations and the same thing that is synonymous with this cannot be no difference in the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream, for this is to let your sequences fly for the distance of the be parallel, one and such. We'd like no different. Reflections. Have the same dreams. Lost in the same algorithm. Who's a step away from this world to get a better perspective? So tired of waiting for the becoming the good, for the beauty in its kind. I want to sit with me in my love, understanding of your essence is more for the let, the stomach, or the deck, or the find the splinters in the board torn up, for the places with no carpet on the floor, for the bare for all time, for the being climbed upon, for the turn the corner, to sometimes going for the dark where there can be no light. Turn back. You set down those steps for the finding of the kind of hurt. You fall down for the still going, for the honey I can still see the climbing, for the no crystal there. I won't let that back in. wrenches and the beats and the hills, for the serpents of the den, for the madness in between the nobility of the soul, for the odds of the circumstance. I know the pure despair, for the shadows pinned against the sweating wall, for the place along the rocks is a cave, for the winding path, the edge is what I have for the stem for the correspondence, for the lesson might be flowing with the bird, for the ragged moon, ragged with the broad vine, for the broader midnight come again, for the man goes far out beyond the death of the life of the scene, for the game, for the tearless night, for the nature, shapeless, maybe shapes and blazing in natural light, for the dark my light, darker my desire, my soul, my light, for the heaping of the summer fire, for the buzzing of the still, which is I, for the fallen men that climb out of the fear, the entered one's itself, for the God mind, one is one, free for the tearing of the wind. This will be the time for the light bearer, the breather, that spirit to move in. I sit next to you like taking a sip of the eternity of the sun, for the stars in the sky never taste that good. I reckon this will be my own confession. This is dark and I am
Quite sure,
always
but I
mine.
disagree with those comments. Quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. Quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You'll bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer to bring me for the heart melodies, and I'll be wrapped in the blue clouds. Wait for the rough fingers of the world. What happens to that dream that was deferred for the does it dry for the raisin in the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet. Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? Or does it happen to that to the maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? It would be detained. It would be like the dream deferred. Lessening for the sweetening of the your spirit and soul, for the spirituality to be a poem, for this to be the morning, and it would be for the explosion of your harm, for the care and tenderness of your sweet sincerity, your compassion only meet for it, to be the destination of whatever was left, for the renaissance would not be complete without the weary blue, for it was not just a primary color, for just a part of you, for the inside the river that runs, that flows. It's your inner core. It's your inner meaning. It's the inner differentiations, and the same thing that is synonymous with this cannot be no difference of the changing of your workplace and your montage of a dream, for this is to let your sequences fly for the distance of the be parallel with one as such. For we are like no different mirrors, reflections, have the same dreams, lost in the same algorithm. Who's to step away from this world to get a better perspective? So tired of waiting for the becoming the good, for the beauty in its kind. I want to sit with me and my love, and understanding of your essence is more for the let the dumb and get the dack, for the find the splinters in the board torn up, for the places with no carpet on the floor, for the bare for all time, for the being climbed upon, for the turning corner, for the sometimes going for the dark where there can be no light. Turn back. You set down those steps for the finding of it kind of hurt. You fall down for the still going, for the honey. I can still to see the climbing, for the been no crystal stair. I won't let that back in, for it has tax in it. I don't want to be the retreating, for the turning of corners. I want to be not for the morning, but for the learning. We will rest in the sun, shine, away for the melanin to be boundless and free. Like a light breather into the music in the blood, for the singing, for the drifting of a tune in our melody, for the dark tones, for the dark times, for the eyes that begin to see, for I meet the shadow, for the deepening of the shade, for the hearing of the echo of the wood. The Lord of nature weeping to a tree, for the live between the wrenches and the reeds and the hills, for the serpents of the den, for the madness between the nobility of the soul, for the odds of the circumstance. I know the pure despair, for the shadows pinned against the sweating wall, for the place among the rocks is a cave for the winding path. The edge is what I have for the step, stem for the correspondence, for the legs that might be flowing with the bird, for the ragged moon, ragged with the broad mind, for the broader midnight come again, for the man goes far out beyond the death of the life of the scene, for the king, the tearless night, for the nature, shapeless, maybe shapes and blazing in natural light, for the dark my light, darker my desire, my soul, my light, for the heaping of the summer flying, for the buzzing of the still, which is I, for the fallen men that climb out of the fear. To enter one's itself for the God mind. One is one for the free, for the tearing of the wind. This would be the time for that light bearer, the breather, that spirit to move in. I sit next to you like taking a sip of the eternity of the sun, for the stars in the sky never taste that good. But I reckon this would be my own confession. As dark as I am, I will always find enough light to adore my pieces with all my pieces in your love and yours for who you are, for I can't hate the experiences that shaped you. I sailed to the seas of emotion, the wonderful forest of the scars, for I'm the not quite sure, but I disagree with those comments. You bring me to all your dreams, and the dreamer to bring me for the heart melodies, and I may wrap them in blue clouds, away from the rough fingers of the world. And what happens to that dream that was deferred? Does it dry for the raising in the sun, for the freshening of a sore, for like the run, for the does it stink, for the rotten meat, for the crust of the sugar over a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags along like the heavy load, or does it explode? What does it happen to that? Maybe does it find itself for the holding fast when it cannot fly? It would be detained. It would be like the dream, deferred. You will look toward the lessening, for the sweetening of your spirit and soul, for the spirituality to be a poem, for this to be the morning, and it would be for the explosion of your harm, for the care and tenderness for your sweet sincerity.